My name is Cindy Reyes, and I am the Financial Education Manager here at EdFed. And I would like to welcome you to another EdFed Academy webinar. Today's webinar is on protecting seniors from financial exploitation. For those of you who are new to our webinar series, I just want to tell you a little bit about our platform. We call it our EdFed Academy, and it's our financial education platform where we offer webinars and workshops on various topics, really in efforts to provide some sort of financial education, product solutions, and really overall great information for our members. Before we start, I do want to note that all participants have been muted. We will have an opportunity for questions and answers during the presentation and after. So if you want to have a question, please feel free to put it in the Q&A function. And today we really hope to provide you some helpful information that's going to help, all of us have a little bit more information of some red flags to catch, some current scams that are happening today, and just how to be a little bit more alert in what's happening. So again, my name is Cindy Reyes and I'm the Financial Education Manager. Today, we are super delighted to have a special guest with us, Mr. Martin Jacobson. He is the Deputy Director, Region 1 with the Seniors versus Crime program. A little bit of information of Mr. Jacobson. He has a master's degree from Purdue University and Barry University and is a graduate of the Southern Police Institute Command Officers School. He started his law enforcement career in 1979 as a San Diego police officer and retired as a sergeant with the Stuart, Florida Police Department with 35 years of service. He retired from Palm Beach State and Indian River State Colleges as an adjunct professor instructor with 30 years of service. He is an author of 2 criminal justice textbooks and is a past regional director of the Florida Crime Prevention Association. He is again a deputy director with Seniors versus Crime, which is a special project of the Florida Attorney General's office. So as you can see, he is a wealth of knowledge. We are super grateful to have him. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Marty, welcome to EdFed, and thank you for being with us today. Can you, let me see if you're ready to go.
I am
Can you
here.
hear me, Marty?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you very much for allowing me to be with you here today, especially the luxury from working from home.
Of course, of course. No, we're really happy to have you here with us today. And this is going to be a little bit different for our audience, just to give you a little bit of insight. We really wanted it to be an in-depth conversation with Mr. Jacobson. Like I said, he has a wealth of knowledge. And so really we're going to be asking him about the program and really just to give us some insight, into what it is that you do. So if you can go ahead and get us started by telling us about the Seniors versus Crime program, what it is exactly.
Okay. Back in 1989, the Florida legislature tasked the Florida Attorney General to come up with a crime prevention initiative to help senior citizens in Florida. At that time, our role was to educate seniors, as we're doing here today, about frauds and con games, to alert senior citizens about crime prevention patterns in their community, to provide assistance to law enforcement agencies. Eventually, we developed a volunteer program, which I can explain in a few moments, and to serve as a resolution service. And that's mainly what we do right now. We serve as a resolution service to mitigate on behalf of seniors who are victims of fraud, con games, exploitation, and deceptive business practices. When we first started out in 1989, we were a task force of police officers, and I was on that task force. And believe it or not, I was skinny and I had hair at that time. Okay. But things have evolved. And our role was to catch bad people that did bad things to senior citizens. But it was sometimes difficult to infiltrate some of these organizations and businesses that were taking advantage of senior citizens. So we started using volunteers. Those volunteers originally came from the Stuart Police Department, where we had a volunteer program, and we started training them and put them into other undercover operations where they could be placed in a situation where someone would take advantage of them. Automobile repair fraud, home repair fraud, timeshare sales, unnecessary water filtration systems. And it was so successful that other agencies started using our volunteers in similar operations. And then the Attorney General's office caught on and developed a volunteer program, which we have today, with more than 200 volunteers in 31 offices around the state of Florida.
Wow. Can you tell us where you have offices in the state of Florida?
Again, we have 30. We have offices that cover every county, all 67 counties in Florida,
Wow.
all the way from the Panhandle down to Monroe County, through our 800 number, which is 1-800-203-3099, or at our website, www.seniorsversuscrime.com. So you can call that toll-free number or go online, and we will connect you to the office that can address your problem most proficiently.
Mr. Jacobson, you said that this is a lot of volunteer initiative.
Yes,
Can you tell us a little bit about how this program is funded? Like, how do you maintain, the ability to do what you do for our community?
certainly. When we first started back in 1989, we had investigative cost recovery, meaning every time we make a case, the court system would assign us a part of the fine to operate. But that became very unpredictable because we never knew what our caseload would be. So the Attorney General's office turned us into a 501c3 within the Attorney General's office. Not a single tax dollar goes to fund our 31 offices or our 13 paid staff. Everything is grant funded. So we have people who look for grants. Again, no tax dollars. There's no cost to a victim or someone who applies for assistance. Everything is funded under a grant.
That's incredible that you stated that they don't have to pay anything to participate in this program and to get that help. Can you tell us a little bit about your current role as deputy director?
Yes, as a deputy director, my role is to screen the incoming cases that come through our website or the 800 number. With my 35 years of police experience, I will reach out to one of our 200 volunteers that has expertise in those areas. We have people from all walks of life: homemakers, accountants, bankers, people in the automotive industry. And I will find the appropriate person that can fast track that case and assign it to them and render them aid to hopefully get a recovery for the victim. Also, I do a lot of presentations like this. So if any of your members belong to an organization that would like us to come out to them, we are glad to do so, and there's no charge for us to replicate what we're doing here today.
Great. That's really great to hear. So, any of you who are listening, he is a wealth of knowledge, and I think this is important that we start sharing this information with our loved ones. One thing I do want to ask you, and we get this question a lot, especially when you see the cases come up. Can you tell us the difference between what, the police would consider a crime versus deceptive behavior? Just because I know that you target those specific cases differently, you treat them differently.
Certainly. In Florida, you have criminal fraud and you have civil fraud. For a criminal fraud to occur, the officer has to show that there is probable cause. He has to he can make an arrest for probable cause, and that goes to the state attorney's office. But then the state attorney has to give that to a jury, and they have to hear evidence to convict that person beyond a reasonable doubt. Oftentimes, we know there was a fraud that occurred, exploitation or deceptive business practice, but it'll be very difficult for the attorney to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the participant wasn't involved one way, shape, or form or another. I mean, did the contractor come to you and solicit you, or did you go to the contractor? Did you play their game with putting up money or trying to save money? So it creates reasonable doubt. However, with seniors versus crime, now we look at civil fraud, meaning we don't have to have probable cause. We do not have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. We only have to show that it happened. And we take the victim, we work with them, and we try to mitigate. And that's our role, to get money back and mitigate for victims. Now, since we started, we've recovered over $45 million that has
Wow.
gone directly back to victims with absolutely no cost to the victim. We recover about $2 million a year on an average. We take in about 16,000 calls on the website or our 800 number. So we're quite active. And again, our role, and I can explain that in a minute, is at a bottom of a 4-tier level on how we get money back for the victims. For example, we look at that civil fraud, and our task from the Attorney General's office is to get money back. However, under Florida statute, a senior citizen who is victimized, the Attorney General can fine the perpetrator up to $15,000. Oftentimes, the perpetrator doesn't want to work with us, and the fine maybe is insignificant, so the Attorney General can litigate. An example with a car dealership that was taking advantage of senior citizens, they litigated and recovered $2 million for the victims, compensated them each individually, and recovered $400,000 in unpaid sales tax to the state of Florida. And of course, the last level we go for is criminal prosecution. Many of our cases will come to Seniors versus Crime, and they will start out as civil, but we will determine there are criminal elements here. We will build a criminal case, and the Attorney General might proceed with a criminal proceeding.
Wow, that's a lot of money, first of all, that is being
Yes.
recovered, which is incredible. Let me ask you a question. Out of the cases that come to you, you did say that some end up being criminal. Can you tell me more or less, like, if somebody comes to you, like, will there most likely be a resolution? Do they, if they have the proper paperwork, or, what can you share in terms of like that's important for them to keep track of? Email communication, things in writing, who they're speaking to. Because I'm sure the more evidence, that they
Yes.
have, the better the result will be. So, what can you say when it
Yeah,
comes
let
to
me
that?
give you an example. We had a pool company on the Treasure Coast that created other credentials which were fake. They had no more experience building a swimming pool than a gravedigger. They went to different municipalities to pull permits for pools and never built the pools. People put down as much as $200,000 for these pool builds. Every law enforcement agency, and I'm talking dozens, said this is not criminal. This is civil. We will not proceed with this. This is a buyer's remorse issue. Buyer beware. Seniors versus Crime took all of those reports and collated them and found out this is an ongoing scheme to defraud. These are all criminal. Because the incidents occurred in multiple counties, they went outside the 19th Judicial Circuit, which is the Treasure Coast, and we provided these reports to the Attorney General, who appointed a state prosecutor, not a state attorney. And FDLE, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, worked with Seniors versus Crime. And subsequently, the owners of this company were arrested and are now in prison for 30 years. And we're
Wow.
talking millions in dollars of swimming pools that did not get built because of what was perceived to be a civil issue by law enforcement came to Seniors versus Crime and became a criminal issue.
I think that right there shows the unique opportunity that you have, because since you work with the entire state of Florida and all of the counties, I think you have a better opportunity to have a grasp on how they're affecting the different municipalities versus a department that's focusing on theirs.
Right.
Like you're able to kind of see the whole scope of whatever it is occurring and help kind of bring
And
that.
that's one issue. We're talking about other pool companies, contractors, the solar industry. And I'm not trying to disparage anyone in those businesses, but people don't come to us and say, wow, I had a great contractor that fixed my roof. They come to us to telling us of their nightmares and their stories about how things didn't get fixed and how they lost money.
Wow. And, so you're mentioning, contractor fraud, and we know that's prevalent in our area. We see it all the time. We see it on the news. Can you tell us some other scam or industries that you see that are like more prevalent coming up?
Yeah, let's talk about contractor fraud. And of course, there's such potential growth here in Florida, and things continue to grow. Under Florida statute 489 126, it addresses how you hire a contractor. For instance, many contractors will want money down. Um, as you are in the financial industry, we recommend that people don't put any money down, but go to the financial industry and put the money into escrow, into a two-party account with the contractor's name and with your name, payable upon completion with a final inspection. Now, we have some entities that require this. For instance, individuals who may get a PACE loan for a contractor job at their home, the government will require that. They will not make a payment to the contractor until the job has a passing inspection. But other places don't do that. And many citizens The contractor say, well, I need 50% down to do this job. Walk away. Get a contractor that will work under the conditions that I described before. Because what happens is a contractor will go out of business. They might have some litigation against them. They can't get materials. They can't get workers. There's COVID issues in the past, and things don't get built, or there's simply outright fraud. We have cases here where builders have taken as much as $400,000 up front and then gone out of business or moved to Costa Rica or Panama or somewhere else and left people high and dry. Now, the statute says if there is not a build within 90 days, after 90 days, it becomes a felony. But many law enforcement agencies don't want to pursue that because there's reasonable doubt. Once again, who contacted the contractor, you, or did they come to you and solicit? Why did you put money down when it wasn't required? So all of that creates reasonable doubt, and Seniors versus Crime gets involved and has to get them backed out or help make them whole. And I have a couple other examples if I can go on.
Yes, of
Okay.
course.
Example, a company hires a roofing contractor for a multi-million-dollar home. They do their due diligence. They check his records, they check his references, they check his insurance and his history, and they're satisfied, and they hire that contractor to put on the roof. And it's supposed to be done within 6 months. Stuff happens, the contractor goes out of business. The subcontractors don't get paid because he's out of business, and they put a lien on the homeowner's house. The roof does not pass inspection, and because it does not pass inspection, they cannot get homeowners insurance.
Mm.
Subsequently, the bank forecloses on the house. So Seniors versus Crime gets involved, and we help them back out the whole process to make them whole. It was a very timely procedure, but that's our job to make sure seniors are made whole through this mitigation process. I mentioned
Mm.
I mentioned the case of contractors and PACE loans. A woman hires a contractor, $12,000 roof job, gets a PACE loan. The contractor, in violation of the contract, hires subcontractors to do the work. The contractor was supposed to use his own crew, but he tried to make money on the deal by hiring cheaper labor. The roof did not pass inspection. Subsequently, PACE and the lending institution will not release the funds to pay for the roof. The roofer puts a lien on the homeowner's home. It is a felony to put a false lien on someone's property, which they did. Subsequently, the contractor faced going to jail, but what happened is they had to strip the whole roof, do it all over again, and pay for it out of their own pocket.
Wow.
Just two examples. Uh,
Wow.
it,
And I know there's so many more and other industries that you can see that are also, prevalent scams that are happening. Can you give us an idea, especially now that we're coming to the holidays, right? So right
yes,
now, everybody feels the need to give and they want to help, right? The less fortunate and they're trying to find ways of helping, but I know that there's always, unfortunately, there's somebody out there that can take advantage of them. Do you want to share a little bit about maybe the charity?
certainly, certainly. Everyone's tugging at your heartstrings this time of year. We just came off with government closure and people hopefully getting their benefits that they're entitled to. But there's a lot of charity fraud out there. There's a lot of organizations to profess to be something that they're not. If you're going to make a donation, we recommend that you give the donation to a charity of your choice, not because someone called you on the phone, and is soliciting for a charity. They may not be who you think that they are. So do your research, find out if the charity has a local chapter, how much of your money is going to administrative cost versus the charity itself. Maybe you want to give to a charity that supports children's activities, but if you give to the national charity, only a portion of your donation is going to whittle down locally. So investigate and find out where your money is going, and is it actually going to the cause that you want it to go to? Otherwise, you might be a victim of a scam.
Yeah, I know, and I think in the same effect of, the hurricane relief, anything now with the storms, I think it happens in the same way. So like, like Mr. Jacobson said, if you do want to give some funds, 100%. Just make sure that you're really donating to an organization, that you're initiating that call, you're initiating that, that
Mhm.
donation, and that they're not calling you just because you never know. Do you have
And
any
I
other?
could give you my name. I could give you my name and address if someone wants to donate to me too. So, but
Okay, same here, same here.
that's not going to happen. But that's okay. Got to seize
No,
the
but
moment.
listen, I definitely wanted to ask you because I know that there's a lot of like impersonation fraud, for those of us who are home and our family loved ones are home and we have somebody knocking on the door, can you give us some tips on how they can just make sure that they're aware of like who can possibly be coming to call you on the phone? Does IRS call you? Do they send somebody to knock on the door? Like, let's be,
Yeah.
like if you can give us some helpful tips so that
Yeah,
our
well, your car warranty is not about to expire. It's not Microsoft. It's not the IRS or Social Security, and your grandkids aren't in jail, and it's not someone calling you asking for bond money. Personally, even on my own work phone, I get tens of calls a day, and I have to let it go to voicemail to screen those calls. So you could do that at home on your home phone. If you don't recognize who it's coming from, just let it go to voicemail, and that'll solve a lot of these problems. But senior citizens oftentimes want to talk to somebody, and they answer the phone, and they get hung up in romance frauds, timeshare frauds, all sorts of travel scams. So you need to be careful. And then there's the ones that come to your door. And I can give you a perfect example at my house. Someone comes to my door and they say, "Hey, I'm from FPL, Florida Power and Light, and I'm here to measure your home for your solar work." So I didn't request any solar panels on my home. Well, we have a work order here. Well, first of all, in my community, it's against the law to solicit door to door without a permit. So you have to go to the police department and present credentials first. And oftentimes, many of these people won't do it because there's paper hanging on them. That means they have arrest warrants or they don't have credentials, and or they're on your property trespassing, particularly if you live in an HOA or in a gated community. So I have had people arrested for coming to my house door to door for violation of city ordinances. They've even run and hid in other neighbors' yards when I told them the police are on their way. So oftentimes these are scam artists. And when we talk about the solar industry, yeah, people want to do the right thing, but oftentimes these people are very scrupulous to try to get you to sign up for a solar contract or some other work that really doesn't pan out.
No, yeah, I've seen that myself. I think they tend to be a little aggressive to make a sale. And so it's just important that, that if it's something you're interested in, and another thing I would say is like, don't always feel the need to open the door. I feel like it's
Right.
an innate feeling that you kind of want to open the door to see what it is, but, let them leave a business card, let them, leave a message through the Ring camera. Hopefully, there's cameras or some sort of device so that they can leave a message or leave something in the mailbox if that's really important, right, to communicate with you. But just being mindful, and again, like these are great tips for them. Don't always open the door. Again, if you're the one initiating the call, then that's something that, okay, you take that into consideration. But if somebody's calling you, there's so many things you've already shared that I think are so helpful. I did want to ask you, right now, the contractor fraud is a big one, but is there anything that you would say is like the most biggest scam that you're seeing right now? Because you did mention the calling of like, oh, you have to post bail for your grandson, and again, that's always pulling at the heartstrings of someone. And so
Right.
you tend to kind of not think reasonably. You're kind of thinking with your heart and you want to do whatever it is. But can you say of something maybe if that's something that you're seeing a lot of?
Yes, please give me permission to back up a little bit on the
Sure.
contractor thing. I want to continue that real quick. I'll
Oh
talk
yeah.
about the solar sales. For instance, someone comes to your house and they try to sell you solar, and you take the bait, hook, line, and sinker. Maybe you pay cash. Maybe you finance it through an organization like yourself. But oftentimes we find that they're third-party lending institutions almost issuing like usury, 18, 19, 20% for a loan to put on solar. And what we're finding is, and again, we get the bad ones, we don't get the good ones. Um, they're selling you something that can't be serviced. You get a 25-year warranty on a product that isn't made anymore, or the company's out of business, or the technology's obsolete. They've hired someone in a Home Depot parking lot to nail it on your roof and destroy your roof. You cannot connect to the grid, so it's worthless on your roof. The energy credits that they promised and the IRS refunds are not there, which they promised, and it turns into a total nightmare. Now, the Attorney General's office has had several indictments on companies that have done this, and some other Attorney General's offices in other states have canceled those predatory loans through injunction that were sold to people so they aren't victimized. So it's a spider web of things pertaining to that industry alone. Now, going on to the other question that you have, there's so many scams out there. Again, romance is another thing that we look at. You're not going to fall in love on the internet. Okay, we have people that are out hundreds of thousands of dollars because they believe they're engaged to someone overseas. They met someone on the internet, and it's always followed up with money. And I'm talking big money, 6 figures.
Wow. So what would you say, what tip can you help us to really share with our loved ones on how they can really protect themselves against scams? What would you say is like a flag? I think the one you mentioned right there, money, asking for money is a big
Yes,
one.
money
But
is a
what would
big
you
thing.
say?
Not to say that I'm a skeptic or I'm cynical, but having been in this business for 40 plus years, when I go home at the end of the day, I give my wife a hug and a kiss and I check her for fugitive warrants and then we watch Jeopardy. Okay. Not to say that I don't trust her, but that's who I deal with all day long. People that are trying to scam other people. You know, be wary. There's going to be a penny leaving your pocket. Know where it's going under what pretenses. So
Yeah. Let me ask you a question because I know we've talked about all the resolution that you have gotten for our senior citizens. What kind of evidence would they need to work with you?
really, they just need to fill out our affidavit, and you go online at seniorsversuscrime.com or call 1-800-203-3099. If nobody answers the phone, leave a message, and an investigator, we call them sleuths, will call you back, and we will try to collate all the information that you have, whether paper or verbal, and make a case and go from there. And again, our role is not to put someone in jail, even though that potentially could happen, but immediately to try to get you money back.
And let me ask you a question because I know you said you really service and help serve the senior citizen population, but do you serve any other communities? Do you work with any other communities?
We really won't refuse anyone, even if you're not a senior citizen, because it's probably linked to someone else who got scammed who is a senior citizen. So it'll tie in. An example: automobile repair fraud, the home repair fraud, automobile purchasing. There's so many scams, and variations of the scams. We will look at them. And our role, if we can't help you immediately, is to turn you over to the best resource. For instance, quite up front, it might be a case that would go to the FBI, the Secret Service, FDLE, the Florida Department of Financial Regulation. There's so many agencies out there that are specific. Now, let me say we have some caveats where we cannot help you out because there's certain agencies that will. For instance, if you have a complaint against your HOA or your condominium board, we cannot deal with that because there's a special agency called the Florida Condominium and HOA Board that deals with those issues. So
Wow.
here's an example. We get a complaint from a resident in an HOA, and they said their HOA hired someone to clean the roof on their home and 499 other homes in their development at $500 a piece. So the management billed the homeowners $500 each, but it was never an HOA approved expenditure. So whatever it is, 500 homes times $500, that's what they wanted to collect. And we were able to put them in touch with the HOA association that regulates that. And those homeowners were not responsible. The management company took that upon themselves to impose that cost on the residents, which was unauthorized. So we
Wow.
look at that.
No, and
Another,
yeah, I was gonna say that you hear a lot about those, and sometimes people don't come forward because they don't know who's gonna help them. So I
yes,
think,
and we will not turn anyone away. We will help find you the right organization. Another case, individual received an email that he had inherited land in England going back 400 years. And if he wanted to keep the land before it was lost to public auction, he would have to pay $850,000 in back property taxes going back 400 years. He sent a wired $850,000 based on an email. That was, quite frankly, a little above and beyond what we could handle with the technology involved. So we hooked up with the FBI. They were ready to proceed with the case. The victim would not sign an affidavit, and because he was afraid that it would become public record. So the case was dropped. It didn't go anywhere, and there's no investigation. He lost $850,000.
That brings another great point that you said that these cases are public record.
Yes,
So that, ultimately, if somebody does research, these cases are going to show up.
yes.
Uh, Let me ask you a question. Do you have any tips for our community that, is there like if they do want to work with a contractor other than the Better Business Bureau, like would you have any other recommendations for them to seek out who is reputable, who is good? Do they have their ducks in a row that they can work with
Mhm.
them and feel confident in that work?
Certainly. And we work with the Better Business Bureau. They're phenomenal. Oftentimes they'll get so many complaints about a company. We'll interlock and we'll take their cases and we'll proceed because we have the investigative authority to go after money where they don't, but they gather a lot of data that they share with us. So if you're going to hire a contractor, here's a couple things that you need to do. You need to call the local contractors licensing board in your county, your city, to check on the reputation of the organization or the contractor that you're going to hire. You may also want to, and I'm not may, you need to call the Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulation to see if they are licensed and if there's any action on their license or any cases pending. You also need to contact their insurance company and don't get called the number that they give you. You find the number and call and make sure that they are insured to do the work that you want them to do. And then also verify with your own insurance company on what they're going to pay. For instance, maybe they get into a job and they say, oh, they need $10,000 more. Well, that shouldn't happen. And you should be working with your own insurance company to make sure that doesn't happen. And then once again, don't give them a large deposit up front. Put the money in escrow, payable upon passing inspection. And I'll give you another anecdote. A woman hires a contractor to put a new roof on a home, and she buys homes, remodels them, and flips them. And she agrees on a price of $27,000. The roof is done, and the local code enforcement passed the roof, but she hires an independent inspector who fails the entire roofing job, and it's got a brand new roof. The contractor has put on roofing shingles that are obsolete and no longer meet the credentials of the current hurricane code. Rather than throwing those shingles in the dumpster where they needed to go, he found a patsy and put them on this woman's roof. We now have a crime. We have an ongoing scheme to defraud. We go, Seniors versus Crime goes to the state attorney's office, who will take the case because they have probable cause and think they can get a conviction. But because you get a conviction and someone goes to jail, doesn't mean the victim's going to get their money back. So Seniors versus Crime negotiates a settlement where she can get the full $27,000 back. But there's still a problem. She's still a victim because now the roof has to be stripped again, and it's going to show up in a title search for the new owner, and it's going to diminish the value of the home. She doesn't take the criminal prosecution. She doesn't take the settlement. She gets her own attorney, and she settles for six figures against the roofing company.
Wow.
So we're not unhappy with that because they walked away from us. They simply got a better resolution, which is a good thing.
Right. I think that many times, even if they don't go with you, you're giving them that guidance of what they could do.
Exactly.
And I think that is just incredible because I think a lot of times you sometimes might feel embarrassed that you got caught up in something and so you don't come forward. And that's the other important side to share is that it'll happen to any of us. We're human. Try to see the good in people. And so it's just important to come forward and see because you never know, because that's the idea is hopefully they won't do this again to somebody else, and that you can help to make them whole. I
Well,
did want
here's,
to ask, yeah, go
yes,
ahead.
I was going to say, here's something that pertains to your industry. We get a lot of complaints about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and stocks. So those things we might refer to the Florida Department of Financial Regulation, which regulates the banking industry. An example, a woman comes home one day and she tells her home health care aide that she just bought $10,000 in Bitcoin. And she ran down to her bank to do a wire transfer, based on a cold call that she had received. Well, we were able to contact the local police department, who ran down to the bank, and they were able to cancel that wire transfer, working with the banking institution, because they attempted to, steal $10,000 from her to buy fake Bitcoins.
Wow. Let me ask you a question now that you bring up those funds. Is there any dollar amount that is not enough for somebody to make a claim? Or like
No,
what would be
not at all. Sometimes it's a warranty issue where there's no money involved. Sometimes it could be millions of dollars. We'll look at everything and give everything our earnest, heartfelt attempt to resolve the conflict, but there's no monetary limitations.
can you talk a little bit about, I know we've talked before and I wanted to hear things that have happened with the auto industry,
Oh,
anything that
certainly.
your organization has worked with scams in that industry?
Oh, I had hair before I started this. Okay, I'm telling you, it's very frustrating. Okay, well, let's start out with automobile sales. Um, I can't say anything nice about the industry, but again, people don't come to us with compliments about it. They come to us with horror stories. Uh, and I'll start out with one that's very basic. A senior citizen will go to a car dealership because they think they're going to get a $300 car payment on a new car. Um, and maybe they walk out with not a purchasing agreement, but they find out 6 months down the road that they're leasing the car. So they're scammed in that respect. Another thing that we see here today is technology. Senior citizens, myself included, because I'm a senior, are wary about using computers. And a lot of times today, you don't get a written contract when you go into a car dealership, and you're supposed to. You're supposed to. Everything's done on a tablet. So you provide information about your income, and subsequently, after the fact, someone goes into that tablet and changes the figures. Your income is changed, which tries to qualify you for a loan. It goes to a credit bureau, and the credit bureaus work with the banks to give you a credit score. And then after the fact, we find several add-ons, um, a warranty package, tire package, oil change package, a insurance plan that pays off the loan should you die during the course of the loan. So your $300 payment is now $600, $700, $800 a month, and you don't know anything about it until the first car payment comes in. These are forgeries. These are criminal elements. Now, we have taken these complaints to our state attorney's office. We have hundreds of them, and it causes a problem with the state attorney because it creates reasonable doubt. What did you actually sign for? And a lot of seniors, they're just not clear, and they don't have a contract in their hand, and they don't know what would happen in the interim. And if we can get close to a criminal prosecution, who do you prosecute? The salesman, the credit manager, the sales manager, the general manager, the owner of the company. So it becomes very problematic. And they come back to Seniors versus Crime, where we have been very, very successful in getting these things removed from the contract, because we can show the senior citizen didn't sign for that. You committed a forgery and put them into this deal. Now, it involves your institutions now as well, because oftentimes we will get a financial recovery for the victim, but they're still locked into that contract. So what can they do? They can go to you at the credit union and refinance this. So maybe we get a $5,000 recovery. They can put that in their pocket. They can pay down the loan, or they can go to you and get refinancing, something closer to what they originally wanted. And we
Wow.
have hundreds and hundreds of these in Florida involving senior citizens. So what would we recommend? Get a paper contract before you leave. Don't walk out of there with a thumb drive or something other than a paper contract. And maybe before you sign that contract, take it to an attorney to look at before you get into a bad deal.
Wow.
I'm sorry to
I'm
be
just
so verbal, but
No, but it's true. I think that so many times, and again, it's like, you don't want to feel like you need somebody's help, or you don't, it's kind of like you don't want to be embarrassed and you kind of want to just go ahead and sign. But it's true. Everything's digital now. It's on a tablet or DocuSign, or, all these ways to sign agreements. And I've never really thought about that somebody could change anything that you've already signed. And if you leave without any proof of what you signed, then it gets into like, what did you sign? What did
yep.
you sign? And with that.
Let me give
I
you
know
a
that,
couple other
yeah.
examples in that industry. We have cases right now where an individual bought a new car and they can't get license plates after 2 months because they bought a stolen car from the dealership. Okay, a stolen car. The dealership sold them a stolen car. And I'm not going to mention names because everything's currently under investigation. Or another individual bought a deluxe truck, the deluxe model, but when he took delivery of the truck, it was a standard model, and there was a $7,000 difference in the price of the two trucks. So Seniors versus Crime comes in, and we get the $7,000 back for the individual. Another woman takes her car into the car lot and they buy her car and she's looking for another one and she comes back and she buys her original vehicle, which they have detailed in pinstripe, for $5,000 more than she traded it in. She thought she was buying a newer model. It was her car, detailed with pinstripe, and they sold it to her for $5,000 more than she got a trade in for. So some other things might be more simple. Individual bought a Lexus from a dealership and it's supposed to come with leather seats and they delivered it with cloth seats. That's a civil fraud. We come in and they had to buy the car back from the individual because it was not delivered as per the contract. I'll give you another one that is horrific. 82-year-old man drives his car into a tree and wrecks a car. He has Alzheimer's and he's not supposed to be driving and his license is suspended. The car dealership totals out his car and they send a salesman to his house to sell him a new car out of a catalog. He has so much, his Alzheimer's is so profound, he doesn't know his name from a pencil. Now, under Florida law, a person who has Alzheimer's, contracts are null and void if they're entered into a person with documented dementia or Alzheimer's. So, Seniors versus Crime went to the family and they did not have power of attorney. You have to have power of attorney because we can only work with the victim, not outside third party sources. And they get power of attorney. And we go back to the dealership and we politely told them, if you don't buy this car back from this individual, you'll get so much negative publicity that you'll never sell a car to a senior citizen ever again. They wrote a check and bought the car back sight unseen. And they
Wow.
fired the salesman who's probably working somewhere else.
Wow. Those are, wow, so many different types of stories, but all with the same, point that they're targeting somebody who's vulnerable, somebody
Yeah.
who's, who's just trying to, get a car and again, taking advantage of the situation.
Remember,
Right.
if you're buying a car, you're in control, not the car salesman, not the car dealer. You carry the purse strings. You are in control. If you don't like the deal, walk. We've heard so many people say, "Oh, I felt like I was being kidnapped. They won't let me go. I'm sitting at the table for 4 hours. Get up and leave. Go somewhere else."
Yeah, I definitely feel like that's a tactic, they bring in somebody else, keep you in an office waiting for a long time, and so you kind of feel like you can't leave, but it's important to remind everybody that you can leave, you can walk away. There's so many different car dealerships out there. And it's not to talk badly about the entire industry, but just be wary of where it is that you're signing an agreement for anything, especially a long-term commitment like buying a vehicle. I do have some questions that are being, I see some raised hands. If you have questions, please feel free to put them on the Q&A section and we can look at those questions. I did have a question about the lottery, specifically
Mhm.
because we are at the $1 billion mark. I don't know if you've been seeing the news.
Yeah,
Have
nobody won.
you
Someone won Mega Meal last night, I think. The Mega
the
Mart.
Mega Millions?
Yeah, I
So
think
do you
someone
see
won.
any scams like that about lottery tickets and things like that?
Yeah, especially with those that are vulnerable. Should maybe some people that shouldn't be here. They'll say, "Hey, I won a lottery ticket and I can't cash it because I'm not a citizen. I'm here illegally. Would you cash it for me?" And then there's a bait and switch, and you get an envelope full of paper where you put your money up front, to split a lottery proceed or something along those lines. One woman we had, she said she won the lottery in Costa Rica, and she had to pay $20,000 in taxes to get her lottery proceeds. And she sent the 20 grand. And our question to her is, have you ever purchased a lottery ticket in Costa Rica? No, I haven't. Then how could you ever win the lottery? And she lost $20,000, which we could not help her. But what we did do is help her get a guardian ad litem. And what a guardian ad litem does It's appointed by the courts, or you get one voluntarily to help you protect your estate. And that guardian ad litem will make sure all your bills are paid and you don't fall prey to these scams and spending money on things that aren't really true.
Wow. We have another question about credit card fraud.
Mhm.
Again, most financial institutions do help their customers, and most, credit card companies help their customers with credit card fraud. But can you share maybe an instance in where you all had to step in and help support the person, the victim?
Well, first of all, credit card companies have their own security department, so we don't have too many incidents there other than to verify and mitigate. But we do have instances with the debit cards. People should not use a debit card for big purchases because it's a cash. It's actually cash. So if you're doing internet purchasing or making a large transaction, we recommend that you use a credit card and find out what the protections are with your credit card company and what your liabilities are up front. Is a $50 liability, or is there no liability on your part? What do they require to cancel a transaction? So do that. Know up front what the credit card companies are requiring of you, but stay away from using the debit card, especially for those online transactions.
That is a really great point. We always like to talk to our students. We work in the community with a lot of members, and even though we have a wonderful rewards program, these are great tips. Anytime that you are working, with a big purchase, just be mindful of what information you are sharing. Anytime that you are working with a third party company like, Cash App and Venmo and all of these digital, apps that exist out there, they're wonderful, super convenient. But definitely just be worried that that's another third party company that has your information. I do have some questions coming in about the agency's web address. I am going to show a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen at the end of the call, at the end of the webinar, so you can definitely see that. But Marty, these are great examples. Feel free to go ahead and share any others. I know that we've
Certainly.
just touched, upon some of them, but there's so many.
Let me talk real quick about something that affects the entire community, motor vehicle repair. And certainly seniors are victimized by this. In the state of Florida, we have what we call the Motor Vehicle Repair Act. Any repair to your car over $100 requires you to sign an invoice up front. Many of us will go in for an automobile repair, and that salesperson will slide a piece of paper in front of you and just initial here, 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 and sign at the bottom. You have just signed the ranch away when you do that. You need to know, specifically what they're going to do. Anything over $100 requires you to get authorization. So if you go in for a $30 oil change and you come back and you have $600 in new tires on your car that you did not authorize to be paid for, you don't have to pay for that. And the procedure is, if you have an unauthorized repair over $100, you get a copy of that invoice and you take it to the clerk of your county court. If it was $600 for tires, you put that $600 into escrow. They give you a certificate. You take that certificate back to the car repair facility, and they have to give you your car back without payment. If they don't do that, it's called auto theft. You call the police department, and they're going to arrest that individual for stealing your car, and you get it back. If they want to collect that $600, they have 60 days to go to small claims court to sue you, but they have to provide that invoice that has your signature on it. If they did that work without your signature or without your permission, the clerk of court will give you all your money back, and you walk away with your car and you pay them nothing. But we see this so many times with add-ons. An example, individual goes into, I'm not going to mention names of companies, into a facility, and they'll do your oil change, but say you need belts, hoses, air fresheners, lug nuts, and all of these things when you don't. And their job is to get you in there and sell you something. So you're not going to get anything for nothing. Be wary of the Motor Vehicle Repair Act. I'll give you another example. A 94-year-old man comes to us, said he had a coupon for a free oil change. When he went back to pick up his car, his free oil change was $444. They said they changed the oil, the transmission fluid, the headlight fluids, any fluid that they could potentially change for $444. Well, we went back in there and I read the man his rights, and you have the right to remain silent, etc. And he says, "What are you, a cop or something?" And I explained what we do and who we are. And at that time that I was a policeman, I said, "You're getting arrested for schemes to defraud, because this was a bait and switch operation to draw seniors into that business with a free oil change and do unauthorized work on their cars."
Wow. And I'm sure that one is a popular one just because, when you go in to do any type of mechanical work on your car, you don't know. They're in there looking at the vehicle, they're the expert, you're trusting them, you're
Mm.
vulnerable and you're really like waiting for them to tell you what's wrong with the car.
Yep.
So, it's really important, for them to look at the Better Business Bureau, to look up those companies and find somebody reputable that you feel that you can trust.
Yes.
Because again, you're really vulnerable in that situation. And I'm assuming also with even medical, with things with dentistry and things like that. I'm sure you must have heard just about everything when somebody goes in for one thing,
Tell me
it
to
is,
go on. Tell me to go on. I'll give you examples there. But we
yeah.
have a separate standalone unit of police officers that investigate Medicaid and Medicare fraud, because we get a lot of things called upcoding. Senior citizens should look at their statements because there might be things on your statement that you did not order that is there. You went in for a dental procedure and they charged something above and beyond what you were told to in an attempt to gather more money or even defraud the federal government. So we have officers dedicated just to doing that.
No, and it's good to also remind people that they can get a second opinion, that you
Mhm.
can go somewhere else, and just make sure that you feel comfortable and who you're trusting to do whatever work. If it's your, obviously your health is really important, but that you feel confident in who it is providing that care.
Now we
Marty,
will look at the Seniors versus Crime. We'll look at the medical, the financial aspect of a potential fraud, and then we will refer it to most likely the area agency on health administration. An example: a man paid $6,000 to have his teeth worked on, and the dentist worked on the wrong teeth and wanted $6,000 more. So Seniors versus Crime gets involved with the financial aspect, and the guy gets the work done, and he doesn't have to pay the extra $6,000, but the dentist malfeasance went to the administration that handles dental claims in Florida.
wow.
So it's
Marty,
two-pronged investigation.
we do have some questions, so I'm going to go ahead and
Okay.
provide them for you. So it's one of them, our members is saying, I have two different questions. One of them is that their brother moved out of the state of Florida. And so he gave this person 3 cemetery plots, but the cemetery company doesn't want to give them to them, even though they were paid for by the person that is receiving them. And they were paid by check to put them in their name, in the new owner's name, but they're not wanting to do that. Well, how can they proceed? Like how can they get this resolved?
They can fill an affidavit on file with us and we'll pick it up and look at it. And coincidentally, I do have someone who works in the funeral industry that would look at that, know that firsthand. I'm assuming, and I'm not an attorney, they would have to look at the contract to see if that property is transferable, because it is deeded property per se.
Mhm.
But we would give that to my investigator sleuth that I know works on funeral home issues, and he would have an answer to that. But they need to fill out the affidavit at www.seniorsversuscrime.com, and we could go forward.
Great. I do have one more question. It says,
Sure.
My Safe Florida approved me for an inspection to improve my home for hurricane season, right? How can I make sure that this is not a scam? Last year, I filled out several pages of an application and it was online. But how can this person ensure that it is not a scam, that this company is reputable and legitimate?
They need to call them personally, not the number on the paperwork, but call the number for My Florida, whatever the name of the agency is, personally. Don't deal with a third party.
Don't deal with a third party. I think that's always a great rule of thumb. If you have any question or you're unsure, always search out yourself online, search out the actual company's email address, the actual company's logo, phone number. Don't take things at face value. The logos might be incorrect, the information they're providing you might be incorrect and false. Don't click on any links and share information that seems urgent, like an urgent request. Always kind of have that sense of like, let me double check first, follow your gut, ask for help. That's what we're here for. Marty, this is incredible. You
It
have
sounds like
shared.
it sounds like you're applying for a job with Seniors versus Crime. You'll have a lot of knowledge yourself. You start Monday at nine
Listen,
o'clock.
no, listen, we love to do what we do. I feel really lucky to do what I do. I work with all members of all ages, starting very, very young and then I also work with our adult membership. And so I love learning about all types of things that are happening in our community and to see how we can spread, that information because I think that's what it is helping each other. This has been incredible. You just are a wealth of knowledge. I do want to say in conclusion, just to kind of finish and wrap this up before I do share your information of your website, can you share any just tips, like rule of thumb, what should somebody be do to kind of maintain, awareness of who they're working with? You shared a lot already about the construction fraud and so things that they have to do, but in general, especially somebody who is, still, buying, we're all consumers, we want to help out charities. What would you say, just some general tips to stay, ahead of
Yeah,
it?
first of all, again, I would go back to don't answer the phone, uh, particularly if you don't recognize the phone number. Let it go to voicemail. Let it regulate itself. Use due diligence. Check ahead of time. Not to be cynical, double check people's credentials and make sure you're dealing with the right people. And before you make a large expenditure, you might want to reach out to an education or an institution such as yourself. Say, hey, someone's asking me to send $10,000 in Zelle cards for this product. What do you think? And hopefully your institution will say, hey, let's back off and have a discussion on this because you might be a victim of a fraud.
This is incredible. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I know everybody's been asking for the information. So for help or to report a crime, we have a number for you. It's 1-800-203-3099. Again, the website is www.seniorsversuscrime.com. And I also want to explain, and encourage those who have, knowledge and experience in different fields that might help others in the community. If you want to become a volunteer, Marty, how can somebody become a volunteer?
If you look at that website, there's a portal for a volunteer application. You can fill it out and we'll get in touch with you.
Amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it there just for one more minute. If you want to screenshot it or write that number down, again, that number is 1-800-203-3099. The website is www.seniorsversuscrime.com. Again, I encourage those who have the experience and are wanting to help. It really just takes a community effort to kind of help one another. I think that's what we're going with. And I want to go ahead and thank you so much, Marty. I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank all of you for being on this call, and I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen. I just want to let you all know that, all of this webinar and this conversation and this interview with Marty is going to be posted on our YouTube page, so EdFed TV. So you're going to have this recording there that we can always refer back to. Marty, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, everybody, for your questions. I think this was incredible. And again, it's just, if you're not sure, have that, and if you're feeling in that gut, to find out more information, make sure that that company is reputable. And ask for help. I think that's the end of all of this is to really kind of, you can lean on others. And again, this is why this organization and this program exists. So thank you so much, Marty. Thank you, everybody. I hope everybody has a great rest of their Saturday. And again, keep on the lookout for another EdFed Academy webinar. Marty, again, Mr. Jacobson.